like pump. Everybody got fake dreads and love to take drugs. When you this rich, you do whatever you want. Huh? Yes, I'm hella ignorant, I don't give a.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today we're coming in with one heck of a story for you. So today we're going to end up covering the first time that I have ever done a extremely large amount of magic mushrooms. For the average person, they will take 1, maybe 2 grams. They'll have a good time. That's where I first started. Is about half a gram, jumped up to 2 grams. It was a very good, wonderful. It was a great time. However, there wasn't a whole lot of the visual effects that I wanted to get from this. So I ended up reaching out to a buddy of mine who we're going to call him Steve for this story. I reached out to Steve. Steve said that he can pick up some great mushrooms, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do a lot. So I grabbed a quarter off of Steve. For those of you that don't know what a quarter is, that is 7 grams. So we ended up getting together. He brought a few of his friends. I brought my girlfriend at the time. It was her first time doing mushrooms just in general. So what ended up happening was she ate a couple, like maybe gram and a half from my buddy Steve's bag, and I just went nuts on the bag that I had gotten. Because I had done them in the past, I knew exactly how they tasted. They weren't the most pleasant tasting thing. So what we ended up doing was we grabbed a couple bags of Skittles before we headed out down to the river where we were going to initially take them. So we end up grabbing our goodies. We grab a couple of drinks for the go. I grabbed myself a Rockstar. Sipping on that as we're going down, having a great old time. We end up rolling up a couple spliffs, smoking those all along the way. So we get down to the river, and then at this point, there's probably about 5 of us that are all there. So my other buddy, who has done a very large amount in the past, he has actually taken an entire half ounce to himself. He became a missing person for 24 hours. That's another story on its own. He will probably be here at some point to tell that story. For the purpose of this video, though, and future videos, we are going to call him Russ. So Russ told me, you know what you got to do here to have the best experience, to have it hit you the quickest, is you want to chew them all up, however, like whatever the amount is that you're going to do, you're going to chew them all up, you're going to push them up into your gums, and you're going to suck on them until you start to feel it. So what ends up happening is we're all sitting down by the river. I'm sitting way out on this fallen down tree over the water. I'm munching away on my mushrooms, having a great old time, just sucking on the juice. It's about 15, maybe 20 minutes later max by the time we're done smoking our spliffs, eating the mushrooms, that we get up to go and walk down the bike path right off where we were. So we're walking up to that bike path from this little beaten up trail. And I look back and I say to Russ, I can feel it. And he looks at me and he says, you're full of shit. There's no way that you can feel this yet. You just took them. We get maybe 5 minutes down the path. It's hitting me hard at this point. So what ends up happening is there's this great big open grassy part right where the bike path, it splits. So you can go one way on the path or the other way. And right in the middle of it is just this field of grass. All that I wanted to do was lay in the grass and feel it basically, I wanted to make grass angels. I was not allowed to do that because we were out in public. They didn't want me to do that. They didn't want anything to be bait. So they keep pushing me along. They wanted to stop in at a Tim Hortons along the way. Yes, I am Canadian, so we have Tim Hortons. We do not have Dunkin' Donuts. Anyways, along the way, we reached a park bench. At that point, I was just like, no, I am done. I need to sit down. I need to relax. I need to take a little bit of a breather. So I'm sitting there. I'm not feeling very good at this point. And like I had mentioned before, this is my first time with such a high dose, so I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I didn't understand the whole gut rot behind mushrooms that can occur. So I start dry heaving, and just a little bit of a heads up for those of you that are squeamish. It does get slightly graphic here. I do start throwing up at this point. But to me, it wasn't just normal vomit. In my eyes, what I was seeing was I was throwing up in between my feet just sitting on this park bench. And it was earthworms, it was maggots, it was centipedes. Like, very, very realistic. They were crawling around, crawling all over my shoes. I didn't puke on my shoes, just so everybody knows. So from this point, what ends up happening is, I don't know how I managed to do it, but I did end up getting a hold of my parents because I needed to go home to a safe place where I can just relax for the rest of the night. They knew that I was going to be out tripping. They didn't mind. They're the kind of people that are, you know what, if you do this, we'd rather know that you are doing it, that you're doing it safe. So they were very good about that. So we gave them a call. I started walking back to the road where I was going to meet them with a girlfriend at the time, and then everybody else went off and did their own thing. So at that point, I start to feel a little bit better as we're walking back. I'm walking, I'm seeing traces everywhere. Things are bright, kaleidoscopes are happening in the trees. I'm seeing eyes everywhere. It's a very, very cool experience. What ends up happening next is I get to the road, I'm sitting there, I'm just having a smoke while I wait, having a good old time. I get in the vehicle with my parents. They ask me one question, and as soon as they asked me this question, things turned south very, very quickly. They asked me how much I took. So I sat there and I explained to them I took 7 grams. They thought that was absolutely ludicrous. Like, why on earth would you do that? You're crazy. So they knew that things weren't going well up until that point, sorry. So their bright idea was, hey, do you need to go to the hospital? As soon as they had said that, things went so far south that there was no returning. So we end up getting me back to the house. We're less than 2 minutes away. Like, that's how far I ended up making it. We were less than 2 minutes away. I mean, we were driving at this point, of course. So we get in, my parents are like, you know what, just put on a movie. relax, have a good old time. Put on something funny, have some laughs. You know what? That was not happening for me that night. I went into the washroom, which is maybe 10 steps away from my bedroom. I stripped down pretty much butt naked, staring at the tile floors that we have, and the tiles are lifting up and changing positions on me. It was a very cool, very scary experience. I didn't know how to feel about it at the time. So my father ends up coming in. He was the smart guy who's like, oh, let's go check on Google. Let's see if he's going to be okay. He comes in. He basically tells me, you know what? There's nothing to be worried about. You're going to be fine. You have to physically consume pretty much your body weight in mushrooms to harm yourself. That made me feel a little better, but it didn't at the same time. So I end up going into my bedroom, tried to curl up with a girlfriend at the time, just relax, watch a movie. She decided she wanted to put on Cat in the Hat because that was her favorite movie. I wasn't feeling too hot at this point still, so I grabbed myself a puke bowl as like a safety measure. I didn't end up needing it the entire night, at least not for puking. For other reasons, I did need it. So I'm sitting there trying to watch Cat in the Hat. Things are starting to vibrate. I'm starting to hit my first peak at this point. So I grab onto the bowl, kind of like hunker down, like I'm going to ride this out. This is going to be a good old time. You never want to do that if you take mushrooms. Once you start to get to your peak, you really need to let go. If you don't let go, that's when crazy things happen and you can't really control anything. So I'm laying there, I'm holding onto the bowl. She's watching the movie, she's laughing her ass off. I'm like, I wish I could be having this good of a time kind of deal. So I'm sitting there, I'm staring at my walls. They start to... Okay, so I'll give you a bit of a heads up. My walls were painted blue, and we put kind of like we put a sheet of plastic on it while the paint was still wet and scrunched it all up and then peeled it off so it looked kind of like water. So I'm looking at that. It starts to drip. All the colors in it start to move. It's kind of like running water at this point. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, that's pretty cool. And then I start seeing different shapes in the wall, and they're morphing into other things. At one point, I saw, what was an underwater serpent. It was swimming through my wall, and then came out and pretty much straight at me. At that point, it was like, no, I'm done, KO'd. So, passed out. This is when things got really intense. So when I passed out, I ended up having a out-of-body experience. My out-of-body experiences that I had during this trip actually ended up coming true. We will cover those in another story at some point. But these out-of-body experiences that I was having was me overdosing on different substances in different places. All of these things ended up happening. Crazy that it was able to show me this. The people that I was overdosing around, I actually had met at one point. Didn't realize it until afterwards. From this point on, I saw a lot of death. I saw skulls. I saw things dying. I saw a lot of graphic things. It scared the living shit out of me for the longest time. I was scared to touch mushrooms. I was scared to touch pretty much any substance. But at one point, I believe it was 420 a few years later, I ended up doing mushrooms again with a good buddy of mine who I may have on the channel at some point. Then at this point, things kind of start to taper off. The visuals aren't quite as intense at this point. It's more things are slightly moving, colors are changing. I'm feeling really happy. We tossed on, I believe it was Super Troopers after Cat in the Hat. Yeah, it was Super Troopers. So we tossed on Super Troopers. As soon as it got to the part where Buddy's licking the back of the cop car, like, these snozberries taste like snozberries, that's when I was in a good place. I just started pissing myself laughing. It was a great time from there on. So things start to cool off. Roll myself up a great big frickin' cannon, go and smoke that out back. Had a good old time. Ended up going back in, laid down, just relaxed, had the best sleep. Like, I don't know if you guys have done mushrooms, if you guys can agree to this or not, but sleeping after you've done mushrooms is just, it is wonderful. It feels so good. So good. Anyways, so I did that. It was probably the scariest mushroom experience that I have ever had. However, it, to this day, has been the best mushroom experience that I have ever had. I will have other crazy stories regarding mushrooms, LSD, DMT, all the psychedelics. They will be covered on this channel at some point. I'm not sure when, can't confirm, deny, but I am more than likely going to be having videos come out on a weekly basis as of now. So I hate to do this, but if you did like the video, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. It shows me that you are interested in this content, that you would be willing to come back for more. I will end up putting a poll in probably on Twitter, so I will shamelessly plug that into the description. I will do a poll there to determine what my next video is going to be. But yeah, as I said, if you liked it, feel free to drop this a like. Tell me about your mushroom experiences, if you have had them, if you would like to do them. Feel free to reach out. If you do end up wanting to do them, do not, I repeat, do not do what I did. It was a terrible idea. I regret it. I can't say I regret it because that was a great experience, but it is not for the faint of heart. Start out with 0.5 gram to 1 gram. Know what you're getting, and then go from there. But anyways, thanks everybody for stopping by. I hope that you have made it this far. If you had, perfect. Have yourselves a wonderful day, night, or evening. Ciao. Cubensis out.